This is the Giraffes Don't Eat Steak podcast, a show that brings you marketing stories, tips, hints, and much more. A treat for those who want to succeed in business or marketers who just want to learn.
Hello, Alex.
Hello, good morning, afternoon. Never remember which one it is. How are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are your rocks doing?
My rocks. Oh, you're talking about Arthur, my dog, who is eating the rocks out of my flower beds. This is his latest. Well, the end result of his latest expedition is all my sunflowers are dead. Because he ate the rocks, he damaged all their roots, and I
Hmm.
now have an empty sunflower bed. So that's that.
Does he swallow the rocks?
No, he just chews them.
Is there some kind of scientific or behavioral study that looks into why dogs do it, or he's just unique?
No, so apparently all the chewing that he does, because he chews everything, I mean, literally everything, is that he's anxious. I'm like, no, no, no. I haven't even dealt with my own anxiety and ADHD and issues. I can't still handle it in a dog. This is too much now.
So it's not anything to do with him, I don't know, new teeth or something, or
No, he's a teenager now. So he's moved in dog years, he's moved into teenager. So he's acting out. He's like proper. He's like my daughter was when she hit teenagers, and my son's just hit that phase now. Like full on act out stage. That is definitely him. Even
Hmm.
last night, he was laying on the bed with me, and then I reached out my hand to pet him, and he growled at me, like just out of the blue. Like, okay, off, out, goodbye. I don't play this game. And then later he came back all sheepish, wanting a hug. I said, no, 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 no. You growled at me. This doesn't work. So yeah, I think
Um,
it's definitely the teenage blues.
do you have a favorite now?
The favorite dog, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I think Millie's always been my favorite. She's cute. But wait until she gets to teenagers. Girls are a little bit worse, I think, than guys at teenage years.
You think so?
She's close.
Fair enough. So I was walking around town the other evening, and I walked past this pizza shop, and there was a big, so they're big. They had a huge printout on the outside of the shop, huge, with a person on it. It's like their brand image, and it kind of looked like it was almost AI generated. Um, but I want you to picture um, Hitler, who really, really fat in bright colored clothes, holding a pizza. You got that
Okay.
image?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if it was. It wasn't. It's not actually Hitler, but it very much looks like Hitler. He even had the little tash
Mis-
here, the black hair kind of combed over like that, creepy face looking.
Is that
Um,
is that perhaps the owner of the business?
well, that's what I was thinking of. Maybe it was. I don't know. The
That's why
really creepy photo.
I mean, there's two reasons you use an image, right? It's the owner of the business, so there's
Yeah.
someone, or this is what your target audience generally looks like. Does the target audience, wherever you are, generally look like big fat Hitlers?
No, they do not.
I,
They actually do not.
I didn't think so.
So it was. That's what I thought. Maybe it's the owner, but then I also thought I feel really sorry for him if that's the owner. It's awful. But it
Shame. If it is
that
him, shame.
but it's really interesting, and I looked at it. Okay, and I know. I mean, I love pizza, so I would put myself in the target audience for that. I would put myself in there, and I thought this just makes it looks terrible. I'm sure the pizza's going to be awful. I don't want to eat it at all. It was a really strange choice, but putting a person as the front of your business is a huge it
Decision.
it's a huge decision, yeah, because it has to be the right image. It has to really fit your brand. And anything a little bit off is going to turn a lot of people off.
Mm,
So, I mean, there's quite a lot of businesses that we know, big, well-known, famous businesses have a person as the face of the business, right?
yeah.
And I mean, they do it, people do it all the time, celebrities. So it's a huge part of branding. Um, and but from I mean, if you have a business and you have a celebrity, you can kind of change the celebrity in and out, or a different spokesperson if you're not really seeing it working, right? But
Yeah.
if it's the business owner, how do you think that works in terms of the business owner being the front of the business and then suddenly taking it away, putting someone else in? Do you think
Yeah.
that how does that work logistically? Do you think that has a negative impact, or it's actually just the same as swapping in and out different celebrities over time? And do people really care? I mean, I guess it depends on how much you pushed it as being part of the story of the business.
Exactly. And if people knew the owner, if it's a pizza shop, we stick to that scenario. If the pizza shop owner was front of house and was the person welcoming you in, maybe, and going, "Oh, try this flavor," like if he was central to the conversation, then swapping him out may be a bit difficult. But if it was just the owner and he was back of house and no one ever saw him anyway, and then swapping it out, no one would notice. So I think
Mm,
it depends on the usage. We had a scenario with the transport company that we worked with. Remember when they did the little chat box and they were looking for a face for the chat box?
mm,
And they used the staff member, right, as the face. And the problem was then the staff member left. You remember that scenario?
yeah,
Is they
yeah.
had the staff member going, "Hi, I'll use fake names. Hi, I'm Bob."
That's the real name. No, I'm
I
joking.
can't think of a fake name, but anyway, "Hi, I'm Bob. Alex, let's go, Alex. Hi, I'm Alex. How can I help you today?" That's what we did, right? There's a little chat box coming up, and then you could type in your question, and we had some answers, which worked really well. But then the person left the business. And then do you go, "Oh, do people even know that's a real person in the business?" Because it was a telephonic business. So you never saw the people, you never saw
Yeah.
the faces, other than maybe team building photographs or, social media commentary about we did this together, that kind of stuff. But I don't think anyone scoured going, "Oh, look, there's the guy
Yeah.
from the chat box,"
Yeah.
right? So
No.
then, if you turned, then when they switched it, I don't think anyone noticed because the connection is not that strong.
Yeah, there's no story for all anyone knew who was engaging with the business. It could just be a stock imagery.
No, exactly. And then the opposite side, and I'll use us as an example, right? Where I am, I'm my face is much more prominent than yours in the marketing detective agency. And for the story is weaved with me, right? Being the bodyguard, there for the detective, there for whatever. So I think if we suddenly swap me out for a blonde or something, I think people would notice, and it would jar a little. I hope people would notice that it would jar a little bit. Maybe someone without a South African, maybe a Welsh or Scottish accent, or like if it changed to someone different. I think because my story and me and whatever are weaved closer to the business, I think it would be obvious if there was change. Even
Yeah.
you, if I kicked you to the curb and got a replacement, maybe like someone with bigger muscles or something, I think someone would notice.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. But I think it's a really powerful tool to use if the business has has grown out of a really organic story or something like that. I mean, that's why
Yeah.
I guess charities, for example, where somebody has had something that's affected them personally in their life, and then they've made it their mission to build a charity
Yeah.
to support that foundation. That person who had a really, really powerful story becomes the draw for that business, right? Because we buy into that story and we get emotionally invested into that story.
Yeah. The emotional hook's very important. So so I think it's that just it is a hard decision. I think even using your own image, you need to think about the publicity that draws because
Mm.
you are then the face of the business. So if you do have a night on the town and end up lying in a gutter, anyone takes a picture of that, that's you and the business combined.
Yeah,
And we had that with some of the celebrities, remember, that we used to work with,
yeah,
where they
exactly.
would misbehave in public and it negatively affected on
Yeah,
on the brand, right? Because it was an
yeah,
association.
yeah. But when you have celebrities, it's easier to kick them away and kick them off, and say that wasn't, and distance yourself from it, from something like, I don't know, like Tiger Woods. I remember he had lots of brand sponsorships, and then he had his affair or something, or whatever it was, and then all of the brands were suddenly like, no, 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 he's got nothing to do with us. So they can distance themselves from it a little bit. But um then you have brands like, I don't know, let's say like Apple. For a while, it's kind of, Apple's a strange one really, because it's a technology brand, but everyone knew what Apple was. It's Steve Jobs. And you think of Apple, you think of Steve Jobs, and he was everywhere with Apple, right?
Yeah. But even that's an interesting case study because as businesses grow, so you may start as a small business and you are the brand, right? So initially Steve Jobs was the genius, but he was very clever about moving the brand to be about Apple and not about him. So that there was a bit of a dissociation, right? Like the marketing was about Apple, not about Steve Jobs. And I think that's part of what businesses struggle with, especially owner run businesses. As
Yeah,
they grow and you now have a team and it's not just about you anymore. How do you start building more and talking more about the brand? Because it's also disempowering for your team. Think about it. If you were the business, so let's say you, Alex, are the business, and everything was about you. So your story, your face, your everything. But now you're trying to grow. So you hire salespeople. If they're coming to the business of Alex, they're going to want to talk to Alex. So they're kind of disempowered.
yeah. No, you make a very good point. The skill there is understanding at what point does the product outsell the personality, I guess.
Exactly. And in order to grow a business, because as a one-man band, right, for you, you only have so many hours in a day.
Yeah,
So so therefore that's the limit of your scope. If you have to take every single call, everything, every single sale, every single whatever, that's the limit of what you have. Therefore you hire people, right? That's why your business is growing, you hire people. But then if it's so closely integrated to you, and I'm thinking Tony Robbins is an example
mm,
because and maybe not now, but I guess initially there was that struggle because if you were signing up to a Tony Robbins coaching session, you'd be very disappointed to find it wasn't Tony Robbins in your coaching session
exactly. Yeah,
because you were paying for Tony Robbins coaching, right?
yeah.
And then Mary arrives going, "Oh, I'm your coach," and you're like, "No,
I
I
want
paid
Tony
for
Robbins.
Tony
Yeah.
Robbins." Um, so you start having, there's that initial friction because I paid for Tony Robbins. Like I saw him in the ad. He spoke about how awesome he is. I bought into him. I don't want second best. I
Mhm.
want the real deal. So I think as small businesses grow, and yes, he's now out of that. You kind of that they're all accredited now by Tony Robbins. It's like, but that there must have been be interesting to look through a history of that. There must have been a
Yeah, no, you're
period
right.
where it was very difficult, where people
Yeah, I
didn't
mean
want second best.
that's a really good specific example of, I mean, because that was him. The product was him.
Yeah.
That's a really tough transition to make.
But without that transition, he would never have grown his business.
Yeah, yeah,
He
you
could
absolutely,
because he would have stayed in the one-to-one space
yeah,
and his business would have stayed the size. It was only by transitioning, by having a bank of people that were now accredited and people got to buy. And now when you sign up for Tony Robbins, you're not going to get Tony Robbins. They maybe give him a special guest appearance in your course. You'll have him for 1 hour in September if you're lucky, right? Kind of stuff. But you kind of know that now. But it would be really fascinating. I'd love to talk to him actually about how difficult that was and how he actually made that transition happen. Because I think there are lots of small business owners struggling with that exact problem, where they
Yeah,
can't let go of the day to day because they know they do it best, but then their business will never grow.
yeah. I mean that's a yeah, it's a really interesting case. I would love to know exactly how that worked, but I guess that it gets to a point where your brand is so, or your personal brand is so well trusted that you can start to advocate something else, or you can like you said, accredit another part of it and say this is as good as me. This, right? You
Yeah,
know?
I'm putting my
Uh,
stamp of approval on it.
yeah, exactly. That is a tough one. That is really tough.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, and I mean, I'm not even there, but I struggle even to give work to my VA.
yeah,
I'm control freak central, right? Like even just giving work to my VA, like, but it's necessary for me to be able to step out of my business and
yeah.
do this stuff of
Anything
running a
with one line
business.
on it is very, very hard to give to someone else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's a great tool to use, especially if there's a good story link. But I guess A, if there's a story linked behind it, and B, if you are also a very good spokesperson for your brand or business, if that makes
True.
sense, in terms of the power of your product. Um, I guess that one is more of the Steve Jobs side, isn't it? The
Yeah.
power of the product rather than his story. His story is not really, I had this problem and I did it. No, it's like he developed the tech and his story is more about the product, whereas the Tony Robbins is about
I
Tony Robbins.
I had a problem and this is how I came it,
Yeah,
and then I train people on how to overcome the same problem. Yeah, very different motivation, right?
yeah. And but the first one is, I guess it must be easier to distance yourself, right? If you're
If you have a
more
physical product.
to the physical product rather than selling you as your personal brand.
Yeah. But it's interesting. And then I mean your personality as I'm an introvert. I don't like being in the public eye. It's not my space. So if that's you, then it's harder, right? It's harder to
Yeah.
be the spokesperson stuff. Then maybe it's easier to hide behind the brand of the product.
And what do you think about changing your personal brand? Because I don't know if you've seen, but Mark Zuckerberg, for example, has obviously gone through a huge branding transition because before he was very much um his PR team or whatever, or he was I don't know who was doing it, but he was very much trying to fit into the corporate look, as in being the leader of Facebook. But now he is regularly posting and it's going out to various different news outlets about him training jujitsu and MMA. He's going to all these cool events like sporting events and things like that. You see him dressing completely differently. He's turning up to press conferences and things like that in casual wear rather than suits.
But
So obviously,
don't you think that's also what I'm saying is there's an agent stage, right? Because there's a certain point in your career when you're like, I'm I don't need to play that game anymore. So when you're young and starting up, you kind of feel like you have to play the game to succeed, right? But then when you've kind of, and I haven't got there yet, I'm waiting, but when you reach that point of, no, I want to just be myself now. Do you think that's where he's coming from? Is just,
but it also happened right after all of the huge heat they were getting from stuff like the Cambridge Analytica and things like that, where he
oh,
was
so they
probably,
tried to make him more personable, you think?
yeah, exactly, tried to make him more one of
Oh,
us. Before
he
he
was,
was coming across as the corporate greedy
yeah, okay,
kid,
okay. That's definitely PR work, right? Then you
Yeah,
wonder what's true.
no, exactly. But it is interesting to see that, or the difference that. Well, I don't know if it's made any difference. It's hard to say because I can't speak for everyone else. I just noticed the change and I thought, that just doesn't look real.
And public perception and PR takes time. This is the other thing, right? It's not gonna be you're gonna arrive one day in sweatpants and everyone's gonna go, oh, he's a nice guy. That's not how it works. Like it's gotta be consistent, it's gotta be for a while. You gotta build it. So let's see where we are in 6 months' time, maybe, and see if number one, if he's kept it up. Because
Yeah,
that if it's not his natural state, then he won't be able to keep it up, right? It's gonna
yeah.
become if it's being
But he is
forced.
going full into it, like with his MMA and stuff. He even broke his leg doing it.
Maybe on purpose to get out.
It's
I would
simple.
I would break my leg on purpose just so I wouldn't have to do it anymore. I'm like, break it.
Yeah,
But so yeah, let's see where he ends up, and then what the public perception is. I went on this fascinating executive breakfast this week with marketers. It was just 10 of us, but only marketers in variety of firms. It was actually on the 40th floor, Alex. You know how much I loved that glass lift up
oof.
to the 40th floor. I mean, the views over London were amazing once you got up there. But yeah, that glass lift was fascinating.
I would have been turned the other way.
But really nice just talking to other marketing people, just it's very rare that marketers get together, right? So that was really nice. And the topic was around um, brand measurement, actually, was which is kind of what we're talking about with the image, because we're talking about all these things, but how do you measure? How do you know? Like that pizza guy, we start with your pizza guy. You are
Mm.
a sample of one.
Yeah,
What is that pizza company doing to measure the impact of that image, to understand whether it's hurting them or not, or if it's just hurting them with you and no one else cares. Um, and therefore to change it, right? So it was just fascinating breakfast, just talking about the different ways to measure the impact of brand and and to show ROI, because there's so much push now to show ROI for every single thing you do, and brand is the hardest. So changing the image, I'd love to see what the ROI measurement is on Mark Zuckerberg's change. How are they measuring the
yeah,
impact of this change?
yeah. I imagine they're doing a lot on social commentary. That must be a big part of it, because I think they were just getting a huge amount of negative social mentions and within personal accounts and across the media. So that I guess that must be a big one that they're doing. And now, because then people are now talking about, so like he entered a jiu-jitsu competition, for example, and then the internet was going crazy about that. Oh, look at it, there's Mark Zuckerberg's in a jiu-jitsu competition, completely taking the focus away from
The
Facebook,
fine.
right? Yeah,
And I mean, customer sentiment is a big measurement in brand tracking, right? Is where's the sentiment?
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, isn't it? That was just this week, so fascinating that that is a topic and so closely linked to the image that you use to portray your business, whether it's your own personal one
yeah.
or not.
But it is important to have those measures in place, the
Mm,
measurements in place. Even if they are kind of more high level and you don't necessarily see the monetary value or change in it, but something like from negative to positive social sentiment,
yeah,
that's a good measurement. That's still a win. You might not be able to put a pound sign on that immediately, but it's a good place to start.
yeah.
Um,
Reduction in complaints is an easy one, or I mean, there are measurements. I think the moral of the story is whatever you do, whether you're using your own face or not, or whatever you're choosing, put in a measurement, right? Like,
Mm.
what is it you're trying to achieve? And make sure that you've got some sort of tracking to back it
So
up.
if yeah. So if someone, a small business owner, if they've just started or they're a couple of years in, 2, 3 years in, and they're thinking about using their own image as the face of the business, either as a spokesman or from a story point of view. I mean, what things do you think that person should consider?
So the first thing I would do is think about how closely that person image is related to the business. Because if it's just Erica starting an accounting firm, let's say, then there isn't really a story. It's just Erica starting an accounting firm. But if it's Erica starting a South African food shop, right? Like because of my South African background, that's closer. Do you see what I mean? So I
Yeah,
think about how close it is, because the further away it is, the more people will not even realize it's you.
too much of a disconnect.
And then it is harder, but think about where you want to end up with a business. Because if you are happy to stay a one-man band and happy to do this yourself, then it's fine. But if you are planning to grow your business and end up with a team of 50 and, offices all around the world and whatever, then undoing that may hurt the business for a short while, like we spoke about the Tony Robbins example.
Mhm.
So then in the beginning, maybe don't do it.
Yeah, to
If
wait until you have a big enough and solid enough foundation in terms of customer base and loyalty before you would start testing the waters of
No, I'm
yeah.
saying then put all that effort, because all of it will be effort, whatever, whether it's your own brand or the company brand or whatever, everything will be effort. So I would then, if your aim is to have a big business with lots of employees and you don't want to be part of the day-to-day anymore, you want to be the CEO, whatever, like if that's where you want to end up, then put all the effort into building the brand of the business.
Mm.
It's the same effort, right? Because you're going to put effort into building the brand of you and then have to change to get people to understand, but you and the company are the
Yeah.
same. And then you're going to have to do that to revert. So for me, I'm lazy, Alex. That feels like hard work, where just from day one, put the work
Yeah.
into building the brand of the business.
I guess it depends on if it's really is about you, then it's
Yes.
different. Like the Tony Robbins, then
Then you have no choice.
then you have no choice, right? But if the choice is there, try to build the brand.
If
If
that's your plan. If
that's
you're quite happy to be a one-man band for the rest of your life, then great. Then do that, which is fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But if if you want to be the next Coca-Cola or whatever, then build Coca-Cola.
Mhm.
Um, is what I would say.
Like it. Cool. All right. Well,
Good example. Thanks for bringing that chat up and taking it away
yeah.
from my messy dogs.
Well, we're all supporting Arthur and his bulls so that you don't chop them off. I think
I
that's
see.
a context actually. So
Yes, we have to give context. So I read somewhere that if I remove Arthur, my dog, Arthur is my dog, if I remove his manly bits, he will become calmer and a much nicer dog and stop chewing things. But I met some colleagues and they have started a petition called Save Arthur's Balls because they like, don't do it. So maybe I should start an Instagram account for Arthur because he seems to have a fan club of people who haven't even met him.
you
But
should do.
hey,
He,
Arthur,
so
do you
he'll be
want a
the
fan
face of
club?
he'll be the
He'll-
face of his business.
The face of, well, Matt, shame. Maybe I must do an Arthur and Millie fan Facebook Instagram account. Ooh, OnlyFans page. Will you guys make me some money?
Sounds
Awesome.
good. All right.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good day. Chat
You
soon.
too. Cheers. Bye bye. That wraps up this episode of Giraffes Don't Eat Steak. Thanks for joining us. I hope you found value in our discussion and got some new ideas to apply to your own business. Tune in next week for another round of marketing insights and inspiration. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate you listening. Catch you next time on Giraffes Don't Eat Steak.